Hi, I'm Laura Rivers, and welcome into Peeking Into Laura's Design Process, a design empowerment series. So with over 32 years experience, I think I got a little something to share. So let's get empowered together. Hey everybody, welcome to Give Me Some Skinnn, Leather 101 Part 2. So, if you saw Part 1, you know what these are all about. Yes, these are my cheaters, and yes, there is a cheat sheet, but it's all good. We're going to have a good time. So let's recap what we learned in Part 1. So we learned about the different grades of leather, as well as the levels of quality based on the environmental factors, as well as the location on the cow. So just a reminder, we're learning about the leather that comes from the cow because it happens to be the most durable and versatile of the leathers that we utilize in our products. But there are other leathers that come from other animals, such as the calf, the lamb, ostrich, goat, croc, alligator, and how about fish? Can you believe it? Fish leather. It exists. That is crazy. So anyway, it appears to be all kinds of creatures that can be turned into leather, okay? So moving on, we now have that fresh hide that now needs to be cured. And the curing process involves utilizing salt, which extracts the moisture from the hide. And then the hide is laid out in the shade to dry. And then once that's done, it's now ready to go on to processing. So you can move on to the tanning part of the process. So, in the preparation for the processing, that process alone is kind of, okay, a little gross as far as I'm concerned. Let me give you 3 words that are part of the process: wetting, fleshing, and unhairing. Okay, unhairing, taking the hair off. So I'm sitting on the floor because my beauty right here, my tangerine beauty, she still has all her hair on, okay? But anyway, so moving on from that, take a look at this chart, which basically shows the general process that's involved with taking the now raw hide and preparing it for tanning. Okay, so now we're ready to move on to the tanning. So tanning converts the protein in the hide into a durable material. And then it gets retanned, so it then turns into a marketable product. So let's take a look at some of the steps that are involved with the whole taking the hide and creating the layers that we now know about. So it is during this step that the hide gets split into horizontal layers, creating the different types of leather. Likewise, the leather is dyed using water-soluble dyes, allowing the dye molecules to penetrate into the hide's fibers. So the final step is finishing, which addresses the color, the texture, the thickness, and the surface patterns. Okay? So this is when the dyed leather gets polished, embossed, and surface coated. So let me show you a few examples of that. Okay, this one has a distressed look. Here's one that has a beautiful embossing. And then we got some that are smooth. All right, with some dyes that are added. Now for the final grade. So this is where the industry grades the leather once it has gone through all the processes, okay? So it gets possibly, I don't know, A through F. I don't know what the grading system is, but it is graded according to these particular things: thickness, softness, flexibility, color, pattern, and feel. And so once that happens, then we have a better understanding of which ranks as the lower quality, which ranks as the higher quality. So here's a little random fun fact, something I picked up on. Have you ever confused nubuck leather with suede? So unlike suede, which results as the cutting off of the top grain leather, it is the underside, nubuck leather actually comes from the full grain leather, and it actually has the surface brushed, which gives it its velvety smooth touch. So a nubuck leather is actually a leather that has this surface adapted to a softer finish, whereas suede is actually the underbelly of a hide. Okay, I love me some suede. I just thought I'd throw that at you because I'm not sure if you knew there was a difference or not. So let's close this by learning the basics of leather with understanding how to identify the leather. So I'm going to take one of my beautiful hides over here, and so this is when you're out shopping and you're wondering, okay, is this even leather? Here's a few things that you can check on. First, check the label or the description. If there's nothing that mentions the name leather in the description, or if they just totally eliminate it, just totally deletes it, then it probably isn't leather and they're trying to hide something, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is feel the texture, okay? So I'm feeling this beautiful pebbled leather right now, and it definitely has a great surface. I'm seeing some imperfections in it, okay? Even though it has a pebbled surface, you can still see the natural characteristics of a real animal underneath this pebbled surface. Look for the imperfections, okay? If it's a natural product, you're not going to see a perfect type of pattern happening there. Then that means that is man-made, manufactured. Nature doesn't work like that, okay? Warmth, okay? This one feels a little cool right now, but it will quickly warm up to your body heat because it did come off a live animal. So it will get warm to the touch. Elasticity. If you press on it, it will come back right away. As opposed to if you press on a vinyl product, it's probably going to stay in that position for a while. So the buoyancy, it'll come right back, okay? And we also have moisture. So if you were to take a drop of water and drop it on the leather, the water should immediately absorb into the leather. Now there are some exceptions. If the leather has been treated with a water repellent product, then it's not going to happen because it was intended to protect the leather. But if you have leather in its purest form, it will absorb moisture when placed on the surface. And then the last thing, but this is the last. Smell. There's nothing like that smell of leather. It is something that you definitely know it when you smell it. It has a very distinct aroma, okay? If it doesn't have an aroma that smells like what we know as a leather, which never goes away, even through all the processes, then you know that it's probably not leather. What can I tell you? So, let's look at that empowerment glow, because I know you got to be feeling it after all of this. Okay, so I'm going to unpack this episode by doing a little sharing with you. I've been in the business for a long time as a designer, as an interior designer, and as a handbag designer. I've used leather in both of these industries. But what I have learned from doing this particular episode with you is that there are characteristics of leather by being by being a natural, breathing, flawed material, and not flawed in the sense that it is damaged, but flawed in the sense that it's not perfect. It is going to change and morph depending on the different environmental conditions that it's placed under. So a couple of stories that I can share with you. I had when I'm making selections for my designs, I pick a leather and I'm picking it based on durability and the texture and all that kind of stuff so that it will wear well through the end of that product's use, okay? I'm picking it based on a visual. I can only pick it from a visual. I don't know what happened prior to that finished leather that I'm seeing. And at times you don't know exactly what is going to happen to that leather until it gets placed under different conditions, and then, you know, some of those things will start to come to the surface. So that's one thing. So the whole tanning process, and there's so many different types of tanning that happens, and just the whole preparing of the leather. Those steps we don't see as a consumer. Those steps I don't see as a designer manufacturer. So a lot of times you don't know if some of those things are going to occur until it gets placed in conditions where it rears itself. So that's one thing I learned. The second thing is, and I've been holding it up, so this is this beautiful pebbled Italian cowhide leather that I've actually sourced for a recent product of mine. And the reason that I ended up with a Italian cowhide was because I was seeking a certain shade of green, okay, for this product. And in all my searching, I found that every time I came across this deep saturation of green, it was always from cows that came from Italy. So the whole thing we learned about the whole environmental factors, how the cows are fed and the conditions and all that kind of stuff, I found it quite interesting that the more premium levels of leather, which is what this is where you will find the more beautifully saturated colors. So there is something to it. So I found that quite interesting as well. So I hope that you had a great experience. I hope that you learned a lot. There's a whole lot more that we can learn about this whole part, learning about leather. So I would love for you to leave some comments because there's a lot more that we can unpack. There's a lot more layers that we can reveal. And I would love to do that with you. So just let me know what you'd like to learn more about and I will be happy to share it with you.